Nanjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitanjena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namah Sri Guru Vargandharva Govinda Gringanaisa Vande Prashadatoye Sham Sarvaramba Shubhankara. So we're continuing with Sri Sri Prapanna-jivanamrtam, and we've completed the section on words from the devotees. Now we've come to the section chapter 9, words, expressions directly made by the Lord himself, which are primarily, we can say, reassuring the hearts of his devotees. It's a beautiful transaction. Sharanga Sharanagati Hoibe Jahar Tahara Partana Shune Shinanda Kumar. When the bhakta is moved in this position of surrender, makes these expressions of surrender, then the Lord is correspondingly drawn by that. It has surrender, Sharanagati has a magnetic force, magnetic pull. So there's this, when one is moved to that position of Sharanagati, then the Lord is similarly moved to reciprocate with that. And before we begin chapter 9, I just wanted to go back to the first chapter. This is verses 15 to 22. Because that's actually, this is kind of like dawning upon me now, and Sri Sri Maharaj directly says this, but it never really, struck me that that's what this book actually is. It's this beautiful presentation of this relationship of the Lord with his surrendered devotees. It is a most wonderful thing. And so here in the first chapter, Srila Sri Maharaj, this is in around verse 14. Srila Sri Maharaj says, Lord Krishna and his associates are portrayed in their natural pastimes of separation and union, and the line of unconditional surrender as established by scriptures and saints has been elucidated. And then in these next verses, which are extraordinarily beautiful, Srila Sri Maharaj is describing the surrendered mood of the devotees, and then on the other side, how the Lord comes to reassure his devotees, express his love for his devotees. I just want to read that. Carefully compiled in this book is the nectar of the deep, heart-revealing, transcendental messages of those devotees whose hearts are unalloyed, who are servitors of the dust of the lotus feet of Krishna, who perform their every act for Krishna, who are filled with insatiable desire exclusively in love of Krishna, and sustain their lives on Krishna's remnants alone, who desire only Krishna's pleasure and serve the servants of Krishna, whose hearts burn in separation of Krishna and overflow with ecstasy in the association of Krishna, whose relative and friend is Krishna, and whose one and only beloved is Krishna. So this is on the side of the devotees. And then, along with these expressions of the devotees, are carefully collected the words of supreme nectar, springing directly from the lotus mouth of Lord Govinda, which vanquish the heartbreak of the devotees, which fulfill the devotees' hopes and earnest aspirations, which destroy all doubt and sever the knot of ignorance, which are dazzling with transcendental wisdom, and astonish the heart by miraculous waves of divine rapture, which are the great panacea for the devotee's heart afflicted with the piercing pains of separation, which are incited wholly for the devotee irrespective of his qualification or disqualification. So much so that the Lord is bound by his pledge to give himself to his devotee. This is like the climax, like this truth, that the Lord actually is so moved by the love of his devotees, he will allow himself to come under the control of that. He will give himself. Atmatmado Hari. He is the Lord's nature, that he gives himself to his devotees, and which openly proclaim with great ecstasy that his very nature is to be subjugated solely by the affection of his devotee, reassuring his devotees in all circumstances. So now we're going to hear, it's like the response. We hear the presentation of the devotees, and now the Lord's response to that. I mean, it's so wonderful the way Sri Sri has compiled this book. Okay, so we're beginning chapter 9, Sri Sri Prapanna-jivanamrtam, words of nectar from the Supreme Lord. Sri Krishnangri Prapananam Krishna Premaika Kankshinam Sarvartya Jnana Hrit Sarva Vishta Seva Sukhapadam Prana Sanjivanam Sakshat Bhagavad Vachanamritam Shri Bhagavata Gita Di Shastra Changriyate Chahi. So this is first two verses, Srila Sridhar Maharaj's summary of this section. Herein, collected from the Holy Scriptures, headed by Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, are words of nectar directly from the lotus mouth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the nectar to vanquish all sorrow and darkness for the souls surrendered to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, and also for those aspiring for exclusive love for Krishna. It nourishes the lives of the devotees, pleasing their hearts by fulfilling all their cherished desires for devotional service. Okay, so we can begin. The first cited verse, it is from the Sri Sri Purana. Sri Bhagavata Prapanna Klesha Haritvam. The Supreme Lord dispels the suffering of his surrendered soul. And this is the verse. Tvam prapanosmi sharanam deva devam janardanam iti ya sharanam praptas tam klesha udaram yaham. I deliver from all suffering one who accepts my shelter, saying, O God of gods, O supreme refuge, I am surrendered unto you. I deliver from all suffering one who accepts my shelter, saying, O God of gods, O supreme refuge, I am surrendered unto you. Tasya sakradeva prapanaya sadabhaya dachitvam. If one seeks refuge in him just once, he awards fearlessness to that person forever. Just once, if one can sincerely make that prayer. And this is the verse, and this verse is a wonderful verse in Ramayana, and I posted something about this recently. This is Ramachandra says, this is my rata. Rata means a vow, like very serious, solemn declaration. And this came at a very particular time when Ramchandra, he's like on the bank of the ocean. He's about to begin his attack on Lanka, to rescue Sita, destroy the evil Ravan. And then what happens unexpectedly is Ravan, he's this evil demon king, but one of his brothers, Vibhishan, he's actually a devotee, and he doesn't want to be a part of his brother's activity. And so he leaves Lanka and he comes to take shelter of Ramachandra. But understandably, not everyone feels that he can be trusted. He's the brother of the enemy number one. And so he arrives to Ramachandra's camp, and someone comes and brings the news to Ramachandra, and Ramachandra first, he asks his advisors, his trusted associates there, what is your opinion? And everyone's expressing different things, and And there's some suspicion, there's some uncertainty. Hanuman knows he's a devotee because Hanuman had been to Lanka and met with him already. But the others, they don't know him. And so many are feeling that he can't be trusted, we should lock him up and like that. And then Ramachandra, he's the embodiment of Dharma, he's the embodiment of nobility, and he gives such a profoundly wonderful response that if someone comes to you and begs you for shelter, then it is your duty to give that. Even if they're coming to harm you, even if secretly their intention is to do you wrong, still, this is like the law of Sharanagata. I think Srila Sridhar uses that expression somewhere. The law of Sharanagati. If someone comes to take shelter of you, you have to accept them. You have to give that protection to them. So Ramachandra, he gives this wonderful response. And he says, even if Ravan came and asked for shelter, I would have to give it to him. So whatever his intention is, my duty is to do good. That's what he's saying. Basically, it's a very significant point. We exist to do good for others. Whether others are doing good or not to us, that's a separate concern. But even if someone's doing wrong to me, and this is also mentioned in the third verse of Shikshashtakam, Amanina Manadena. We must give respect, we must give honor, and not expect it for ourselves. So even if we're not getting it, we have to give it. It's a very high plane of consciousness to live in. And Ramchandra set the example of that. And then he makes this statement that it is my vow. If somebody just once asks me for shelter, for protection, I have to give it to them, forever. So this is the verse. Sakrid eva prapano yastavasmiti chayachate abhayam sarvada tasmai dadamyetad ratam mama. It is my pledge that if anyone just once sincerely petitions me for shelter, saying, I am yours, then I grant him courage for all time to come. And interestingly, in Sharanagati, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songbook, he references this verse, and the way that what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur draws out from this is that actually, by fearlessness or courage, what is it that the word is abhay, fearlessness. What does that actually mean? What Bhaktivinoda Thakur draws out is freedom from illusion. That is a real position of fearlessness. So it doesn't mean to be in a good situation in this world, but it means in terms of one's consciousness, to be free from illusion. That is a safe position. That's the only safe position, to be freedom from material consciousness. So that positions one, in an infallible place. So then you have, Parikshit Maharaj, who's at death's door, and he can say with full conviction, that doesn't make any difference to me. My only prayer, let me die immediately. What is the only meaningful, substantial thing? This current of Harikatha. I mean, I feel like a hypocrite actually, talking about this, because it feels so far away from my own consciousness. But at the same time, it's wonderful to appreciate it, and that can purify us and bring us one day to such a plane of consciousness. But this is the promise of Ramachandra. And we also I heard this from Chagi Maharaj, that one of our devotees asked Srila Gurudev like about this verse, like who's actually being referred to here? Like, is this talking about like really high, great devotees, or does it mean like people like us? And Gurudev said, anyone, you know, I mean, if it comes from a real place of, you know, earnestness and sincerity, but anyone, doesn't matter who it is, who makes that type of approach in prayer to the Lord. Sacha sadhunam paritlana karta. He is the savior of the saints. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. I appear in every age to deliver the saintly devotees, to vanquish the sinful miscreants, and to firmly establish true religion. So this is a famous verse in the beginning of chapter 4 in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is describing how he, you know, repeatedly appears in this world and for these purposes, and it's very beautiful. You know, this the first thing he mentions on the list here is Paritranaya Sadhunam, to save my devotees, to protect my devotees. And that's what moves him, the call of his devotees. And when, you know, before Mahaprabhu appears, it's Advaita Acharya who prays to the Lord, like, please come, you know, please help the lost souls of this world. Tasya partanurupa falda chitvam. He bestows whatever fruit he is petitioned for. And this is another point, you know, Krishna will actually give you what you want. So be careful what you wish for. You know? He will give you what you want. If you want some material benefit, he can give that. But we have to be smart and, you know, hold out for the real thing. Ye yatamam prapadyante tamstataiva gajamyaham mama vart manuvartante manushya parta sarvashaha. O Partha, however a person worships me, I am correspondingly attainable by him. Certainly all men follow my path. They follow that path which is revealed by me. How we approach him? Well, he will approach us. Bahudeva yajinam Shri Krishna tara devata prapatir bhogabi sandimulaiva. Motivation for sense gratification is the only reason that the worshippers of the many demigods surrender to those gods instead of to Lord Krishna. Kamaistaiste hritajnana prapadyante nya devata tam tam niyamam astaya prakrita niyata swaya. Persons whose good sense is perverted by some material desire. This is from Bhagavad Gita, I believe. Persons whose good sense is perverted by some material desire become preoccupied with that desire, and thus they adopt the appropriate rules and regulations to worship other gods. So there's no other reason for which one would avoid the worship of Krishna. It's just that it's more reliable to have your worldly desires fulfilled. Because Krishna, that's the thing, he's unreliable. Because he depending on what he sees within you, you know, like your potential at this time, then he may fulfill your material desires, but he may also totally destroy your material situation. So it's a little risky. If he's being merciful and he thinks that is what is needed for you at this time, then he can take everything away from you, and mentioned that directly. So therefore, it's more reliable to worship the devas, the demigods, if there's some material desire you want. So that's the only reason that one would avoid the worship of Krishna. Otherwise, Krishna is so wonderful, so beautiful, and so charming. Why could anyone with any sense avoid that relationship? You know, that relationship with Krishna is so charming that one can happily reject the things of this world. Gurudev, he told the story of one devotee, Sanatan Prabhu. He was a very respectable Indian devotee, lived in Calcutta. Gurudev liked him very much. I'm not sure if he was Gurudev's disciple or Srila Maharaj's disciple, but he was very dear and close to the mat. But there was some... Devashishu mentioned the details. He was in some business enterprise, and his partners, they did something illegal, and then they like absconded or something like that. So he had to face the heat, and he ended up being put under house arrest. And he was gradually losing everything, and he had to pay all these like court fees, and if he wanted to go anywhere, he had to have some guards with him, and he had to pay for that also, and like, you know, crazy stuff. And every day he would go to the temple to give his obeisance to the deities, and no doubt to Gurudev. And so one day one of these guards asked him, like why do you have so much devotion for Krishna? Like, he hasn't saved you in this situation. You're in like a big mess right now, and you know, you've lost all your nice furniture, losing all your money, you know, so what's Krishna done for you? Why are you so devoted to him? And Gurudev was so happy with his response. Sanatan Prabhu told them, you know, Krishna doesn't have to do anything for me. You know, I like Krishna, you know, and I want to worship Krishna. I want to serve Krishna. And he doesn't need to do anything for me. You know, the relationship we have, it exists independent of whatever material situation. It's just based on this loving connection, and he doesn't need to provide anything for me, you know. So like that connection can satisfy one to the extent that one doesn't care, you know, for anything else. Tat sarve shadish, tat sarvesh. This is a tough one. These Sanskrit compounds. Tat sarvesh. Sarve Shareshwarat Tvagyanam Eva Karminam Bahudeva Yajane Karanam. The elevationists worship many gods due to their ignorance of Sri Krishna's position as the supreme God of all gods. And this is also a verse from Bhagavad Gita. Aham hi sarva yagyanam bhokta cha prabhur eva cha natu mam abhijananti tatvinatash chavanti te. I alone, and this is quite a well-known verse in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's, and it's one of those places where Krishna's like just coming out and saying it, like, I am everything. Worship me. I am the source. As Srila Sridhar says, you know, shamelessly Krishna's like saying this. And why? Because it's for the benefit of all souls to have this awareness that, you know, I am God and you all need to worship me, and that will be good for you. Not for his own gain. So he's like, you know, shamelessly pleading on his own behalf for our benefit. So he's saying here, Bhokta cha prabhu eva cha, that I am the enjoyer and I'm also the source. I mean, that's like just cuts everything out of the picture. Everything comes from me. I am the source of everything, and everything that same everything is meant for me too, for my satisfaction. Aham hi sarva yagyanam bhokta cha prabha eva cha. I alone am the enjoyer and the Lord of all sacrifices. Those who worship the demigods, considering them to be independent of me, are known as superficial worshippers, pratikopasaks. They do not understand my factual position, and thus, due to their fallacious worship, they deviate from the path. This is quite an expanded translation. When they worship as my expansions, the demigods, headed by the sun god, they may ultimately gain an auspicious result. Don't find this so clear. Ta chudurmati dushkriti mudata rupamaya prabhava eva karanam. The cause of such stunted intelligence, evil propensities, and foolishness, the power of illusion, Maya. Namam duskritino muda prapadyante naradama mayaya pahrita jnana asaram bhavam ashritaha. Being merged in Maya, foolish and fallen men, dedicated to evil deeds, resort to the demoniac mentality and do not surrender to me. And this, Krishna is listing here, this is also Bhagavad Gita. So it's listing 4 types of persons. This is quite a well-known verse of Bhagavad Gita. Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada liked this verse. 4 types of people who don't surrender to me. Those who are muda, means like very foolish, like an ass. Naradama means the lowest among mankind. Mayaya parita jnana, a person whose knowledge is covered by illusion, and those who are asuras, those who are just demonic. These 4 kinds of persons. And there was one incident, Srila Janardana Maharaj likes to tell this story, that it was in, maybe it was Calcutta, I think it was in India, and Srila Prabhupada Swami Maharaj was giving some public talk, and then there was someone in the audience who, I think he was an Indian person, and I think the context was he was saying like, I'm not sure, maybe it was that he was I don't think he was appreciating, I think he was being critical, but I think it was something about how like all these Westerners are taking to this and we're not taking to it. Something like that. But anyhow, it was some criticism. But Srila Prabhupada, he gave this, and this was really Srila Prabhupada's style, like, and he had the power to do that. It shows you what kind of power he had, because he could just say really like straight, harsh things, but people would happily accept it. There was one quote I read, it was one, someone who didn't join the movement, is maybe like a poet or something, and he expressed how like somehow Srila Prabhupada had this way, like you could just totally like disagree with him, but you would be happy like to hear him, like the way he was presenting things, because he had that type of power, and he wasn't coming from an envious position, wasn't coming like he wanted to establish himself. It was just he was presenting the truth. So that persons could pick up on that, even if they didn't agree. They could appreciate his purity of purpose. And so he could say like really heavy things, like really heavy things, and people could accept it. But Srila Prabhupada, he responded with this verse, and he says, well, if you don't, what I'm saying, it's not my own words. These are the words of Krishna. And if you can't accept it, then you're one of 4 kinds of people. And then he quoted this verse. You're one of 4 kinds of people. You're either stupid like an ass, or you're the lowest among mankind, or your knowledge is covered by illusion, or you're just an asura. And I'm not saying this, please don't mind. This is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. He could actually like talk like that, Gurudev also, he chuckled about that, like noting this sharp way that Srila Prabhupada could speak to people, very just direct, And he told some of his disciples, like, I can say this, but you can't, don't copy me.
Yeah. Okay.
Dvandvatita sukritiman eva Shri Krishna bhajanadikari. Only the virtuous soul who rejects both mundane happiness and unhappiness is qualified to worship Lord Krishna. Only the virtuous soul who rejects both mundane happiness and unhappiness, so both the happiness and the unhappiness of this world, is qualified to worship Lord Krishna. On the other hand, as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur points out, Seva Sukha Dukkha Parama Sampada Nashe Avidya Dukkha. Both the happiness and the unhappiness that come in my service and my seva, they are both my greatest wealth, because they both destroy the ignorance of illusion. So happiness and unhappiness in the material plane are worthless, are both worthless, but on the spiritual side, both the unhappiness and happiness are both very valuable things. Yesham twantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva mohanirmukta bhajante mam drinarataha. Those virtuous persons whose sins have been destroyed are liberated from illusory happiness and unhappiness, and they worship me with firm resolve. These are all actually, I think it said up to verse 31, these are all from Bhagavad Gita. Now this is a very famous verse. Shri Krishna prapatir eva maya tadanopaya nanyaha. Surrender to Sri Krishna is the only method of overcoming Maya. Daivi hieshu gunamayi mama maya darachaya mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. This trimodal deluding energy, Maya, of mine is practically insurmountable. Only those who surrender unto me can overcome it. So this is the secret to go, because there are some who will take the direct approach, trying to become free of Maya's influence, but that will only give you a temporary result. So this is the secret. You go to the master of Maya. You go to the boss. You get an in with him, and then he'll just make some wave of his hand, and that'll be it. Then she will understand her duty is over with this person. There's another verse in Bhagavatam where there's this phrase Tasya Maya, means his Maya. She has a master. So this is the smart way to go about it. And otherwise, as is mentioned here, Duratyaya, Mama, and here Krishna says my Maya, Mama Maya. And Duratyaya means like impossible, very, very difficult, impossible. Otherwise, you can't become free. This is the only real way. Sri Krishna, one will get everything through surrender to the Lord. This will actually be like an inconsequential, side effect of that. Sri Krishna prapatir eva shuddhagyana phalam ityanubhavitor mahatmana sudorlabhatam. Absolute surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna is the purpose of knowledge, jnana. The great soul who realizes this truth is exceedingly rare. Absolute surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna is the purpose of knowledge. The great soul who realizes this truth is exceedingly rare. And this is also a famous verse of Bhagavad Gita. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudorlabha. Having passed through many lifetimes of assiduous spiritual practices, by the influence of sadhu sangha, the association of saints, one attains to knowledge of my identity, and thus surrenders utterly unto me. Thereafter he reaches me, and realizes that everything without exception is related to Vasudeva, and thus everything that be is of the nature of Vasudeva. Such a great soul is exceedingly rare. Having passed through many lifetimes of assiduous spiritual practices, by the influence of sadhu sangha, the association of saints, one attains to knowledge of my identity, and thus surrenders utterly unto me. Thereafter he reaches me, and realizes that everything without exception is related to Vasudeva, and thus everything that be is of the nature of Vasudeva. Such a great soul is exceedingly rare. So as Param Gumaraj draws out from here, the truly, who is Jnanavan, who is the wise, knowledgeable person, that their knowledge should bring them to this point. That should be the result of their knowledge. Surrender to the Lord. This is absolute surrender into the lotus feet of Sri Krishna is the purpose of knowledge. The great soul who realizes this truth is exceedingly rare. Labdha chit. What time is it? Go a little bit more. Labdha chit sarupasyaiva Shri Krishna parabhakti yatha sa nirguna eva. A person who has realized his constitutional spiritual nature engages in transcendental devotional service unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. So this verse we're coming to now, and also the one that we just read, this won't be the root of every soul, but this is one root. A person to come through Gyan, like we can say following the progression of Bhagavad Gita, karma, Gyan, bhakti. So this is what's being described here, and then in the previous verse is someone who comes through that route of, not directly the bhakti route, but in this development, from a platform of pure spiritual consciousness to realize that, this is the higher thing, that can connect with that flow of bhakti. So this verse is also in that vein. Labdha chit sarupasyaiva Shri Krishna parabhakti atha sa nirguna eva. A person who has realized his constitutional spiritual nature engages in transcendental devotional service unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. So first coming to that position of realizing your spiritual nature, and then from there to go to the current of seva, of bhakti. And there's some classic examples of that, like Shukadev Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva. He was in that position of a Brahmabhuta, someone who's realize their spiritual nature. And then and so here Srila Sri Maharaj adds, therefore such devotion, this is the main point that he's drawing out here, such devotion is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. If someone who's already reached a position of utter detachment from the material world is from that point attracted to the service of Krishna, then you understand Krishna is fully, his nature is fully beyond anything of this material plane. That like demonstrates that. And so like in the case of Shukadev Goswami, he was totally disconnected from anything of this material plane. Lived in the forest, went naked. There's that story that he passed by some girls bathing naked in a river, and they were totally undisturbed because they weren't shy, because they could see his eye is like vacant. He's not even distinguishing between male and female. That's where he was. But from that position, when he heard about Krishna Lila, he was attracted. That moved him. So then you understand that attraction has nothing to do with this lower world. And it demonstrates the purity of that plane of Krishna Lila. It is of the Nirgun plane, free from any touch of this world. So that is the point Srila Sridhar Maharaj is trying out here. A person who has realized his constitutional spiritual nature engages in or like we were mentioning last night, how Lord Brahma, he cursed his amongst his sons, these four who are known as the Chatusam, because they wanted to be brahmacharis and he needed them to propagate, but they weren't interested. They wanted to be brahmacharis. And so they were like Brahma Gyanis also, like Shukadev. They were living in this plane of pure spiritual consciousness. But when they got some touch of Krishna, it's described the scent of the tulasi coming from the feet of the Lord, that agitated them. They were attracted by that. So that's also given as a demonstration of the purity of Krishna Lila. That from that platform they're attracted. Shukadev and the Chatusam. Maybe there's one or two other well-known examples I can't think of now. But there's also a few different verses which highlight this point more. The Atmarama verse and others. Anyhow, let's read this. A person who has realized his constitutional spiritual nature engages in transcendental devotional service unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Therefore, such devotion is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. And this is the verse for Bhagavad Gita. Brahma Bhuta, this is 18th chapter. Brahma Bhuta prasanatma nashochati nakankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim lavate param. By knowledge of the non-differentiated absolute truth, one can achieve self-satisfaction, freedom from lamentation and hankering, and perceive the equality in all beings. And above this, he engages in transcendental devotional service unto me. By knowledge of the non-differentiated absolute truth, one can achieve self-satisfaction, freedom from lamentation and hankering, and perceive the equality in all beings. And above this, he engages in transcendental devotional service unto me. So this verse, it's not describing really the positive side, and for that reason Mahaprabhu rejects this verse in the Ramananda Sambad, as representing the ideal that he's giving. Because here, like as Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, this person is not actually situated in the plane of devotion. proper. As Sri Sri said, he's at the door. He's at that like clean, clear spiritual platform, realizing his nature as soul, but he hasn't actually gained entrance into that higher dynamic, positive side. So he's not completely in a safe position yet. If he gets something from here, it'll be the real thing, because his platform, his foundation is purely spiritual. But he's not quite there yet. So this verse is describing the characteristics of someone who is Brahma-bhuta, who has realized their spiritual nature. Prasannatma, they're joyful. Nashochati, they don't, because, we don't always mention this, but because we focus more on the joy that will come from Krishna Seva. But there is innate joy within the soul. There is Ananda within the soul. So one who's realized the nature of soul, they do taste that. It's just that is like nothing compared to what can be achieved. And that just shows like how we have no scale, we have no reference point, because our idea of joy in this world, that's already nothing compared to the joy of our own soul. And that's nothing compared to the joy of Krishna Seva. So one will experience some happiness, some joy. And nashochati, they don't lament, because they know nothing of this world has much significance. It's all matter. I am spirit. This is matter. So if I lose some matter, there's no need to lament, because I am spiritual. They're two completely different things. And nakangshati, they don't desire. They're not in this state of desiring that I need this, I need that, I need this money, I need that car, or whatever, I need this body, etc., etc. Because they see it's just matter, and I am spirit. So it's a nice meditation. Nashochati, nakangshati. No lamentation, no hankering after anything of this world. Samasarveshu bhuteshu. And they see all souls with this, as having this one spiritual nature. They're not distinguishing between high, low, rich, poor, ugly, beautiful, and because all these things are superficial. Famous, unknown, and so on and so forth. They're not impressed by that, They perceive everyone is of the nature of spirit, and all these things are just coverings. So they see that oneness, equality. Mad bhaktim labhate param. That person, he will attain my bhakti. Okay, maybe I'll just read one more verse. Akila rasamrita murti Shri Krishna eva jnani gana mrigya tvariya brahmano mula shayapha. Shri Krishna, the embodiment of the entire compass of divine mellows. Akila rasamrita murti. This is a phrase of Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Srila Sridhar Maharaj likes very much. Srila Sridhar Maharaj rendered it the emporium of all rasa. Krishna is the embodiment of all types of rasa, all types of joy, taste, ecstasy. Shri Krishna, the embodiment of the entire compass of divine mellows, is the absolute source of the undifferentiated Brahman that the liberationists desire to merge into as the fourth state of the soul. So this is a significant verse from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya yasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya kantikasya cha. So, that this Brahman, this Brahma, that person strives so much to merge into, Krishna is saying here, I am the source of that. I am the basis of that. transcendental to the modes of nature. No, that's what's that line, Gurudev? Like Shama Sundaram Eva Atulam Shama Sundaram. No, that's just my light. That's my effulgence. What is that very nice line? Can't remember. Transcendental to the modes of nature, as the axiomatic truth, replete with the divine variegatedness of holy name, form, nature, associates, and pastimes. I alone am the mainstay and fountainhead of Brahman, the ultimate destination of the liberationists. Immortality, so let's continue. It's just an extended translation. Immortality, immutability, eternality, the eternal sustenance of divine love, and the ultimate ecstasy of the divine mellows of Vrindavan. All these are supported by me, the transcendental, variegated, axiomatic reality, Krishna.
What does axiomatic mean?
Axiomatic, I thought it meant like something like a fundamental truth, like an unfixed truth, something like that. We can check. Axiomatic.
Yeah,
It also meant like self-evident, something like that. Can check it out, look it up.
Like a principle, just, you know, an axiom.
Oh yeah.
Like a truth, reality.
What do you have there?
Self-evident or unquestionable.
Okay.
Or unquestionable.
Okay.
Essence,
Yeah.
reality.
Principle.
Well, you would say like an axiomatic principle. A principle that is absolute.
Yeah. Unquestionable, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, maybe we'll stop there for today. Jai Sri Sri Prapanna-jivanamrtam ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Rakshak Sri Haridev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswati ki Jai. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharva Govinda Sundar Ji ki Jai. All the assembled devotees ki Jai. All the world devotees ki Jai. Shri Hari Ram Sankirtan ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande.